Hey, 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 everybody. Happy Thursday and welcome back to the stream. Boy, am I about to get a little fired up today because another day, another opportunity for the Uniparty in Washington to do absolutely everything they can to gaslight you into censorship under the guise of national security. I feel like the dog sitting in the house meme where everything's on fire and it's just like, it's fine. We're fine. Everything's fine. But we're clearly not fine in the United States of America today as our government tries desperately to make 2024 look a whole lot more like 1984. No thank you. Unsubscribe. We are going to be unpacking all of that on the stream today. And what do I mean by all of this? There is a new attempt, the same attempt, but they're trying to do it a bit more cleverly, to ban TikTok in the United States of America based on what the House of Representatives already voted for, but in a brand new vote in a 184-page bill. No, I'm not exaggerating. On page 60 or so, conveniently tucked right in the middle, to ban TikTok while also trying to tie a TikTok ban to a foreign aid package that would give $60 billion more dollars to Ukraine, $26 billion to humanitarian aid in Gaza, $8 billion to the Indo-Pacific and specifically Taiwan, border security, sanctioning Iran, and more. Because all of those things 100% have everything to do with each other. We are going to spend the stream today unpacking the very controversial 21st Century Peace Through Strength Act that Congress is expected to vote on this weekend, and I will likely go slightly feral screaming at the Uniparty in Washington. So if you too feel wildly frustrated by our elected officials not representing the best interests of American citizens and desperately trying to censor us in any way, shape, or form that they possibly can, stick around for the whole stream. It's going to be a fun one. I've got my sweet puppy on my lap, taking a nice little nap. I got my overalls on. Life is freaking good, and we're excited to be streaming with you guys today. To kick off the stream, do me a huge, huge favor and hit the like button if you haven't already. That could look like a thumbs up or a little heart, depending on where you're watching. More importantly, smash that follow or subscribe button to help us continue growing one person at a time. We are so ridiculously close to 1 million of you on Instagram, which blows my mind. We're inching closer to 50,000 subs on YouTube. Every single time you guys hit follow or sub, it makes such a huge difference for us as an independent channel over here. And most importantly, we want to get to know you guys as you become a part of our community. So let us know who you are and where you're watching from in our chat. And we're going to have ourselves a fiery debate today. Saying hi to some people to begin with in the chat. Drop your name, where you're from. As you guys are doing that, huge, huge thank you to our amazing friends over at Public Square who help to make the live stream possible every day. In case you guys aren't already familiar, Public Square is America's largest and fastest growing marketplace of more than 75,000 small businesses that all share your values, all of which are pro-family, pro-faith, and pro-freedom. If you are looking to make the switch to find businesses to support that share your values, or if you're trying to grow your small business to a consumer base that is so fired up about supporting you, you guys need to head right now to publicsquare.com in the next tab over and come back to it as soon as the stream is over. One word, Public Square. Sign your business up or start looking for businesses to switch to support them as they support your values. Your dollar really does make a difference in this crazy upside down world that we are living in. Let's start over on YouTube today for our hellos as we get started in the stream. Samuel is here. We've got Kobe and G-Fact watching. Los Ravosa is here watching in Southeast Europe. Hello. Miguel, Delane Thomas, Brenda, and more are all over on YouTube. We've got the Glock fanboy and Hottie kicking things off for us on Rumble. Alex, Nitty Witty, Crazy Cat Lady, and more are all in our chat on Locals. And over on Instagram, we've got Maggie watching in New Hampshire, Ben in Charleston, South Carolina. We've got West Palm Beach, Reading with Bristol in Kansas. Ron is watching in Michigan. We've got Pelrose watching in California. We've got North Carolina, Nebraska. Kitty is watching in Haifa in Israel. Very, very cool. Leah's watching from South Texas. Lots of Nebraska people. We love to see that. Michigan, India, Arkansas, Louisiana, Iowa, Brazil, Romania. So very freaking cool. Spokane, Washington, London in the UK. We've got Utah, Syria, Texas, more South Carolina, and more, all tuning in on Instagram. You guys are the best, and I'm super, super happy that you guys are here. Okay, to kick things off on the show today, first and foremost, this is already a very controversial conversation. So I'm totally sensitive to the fact that you guys might wildly disagree with where I'm coming from with my excessive concern on the precedent it sets to ban TikTok. I have been abundantly ideologically consistent throughout the last several years on the conversation regarding a potential TikTok ban. I am fundamentally against a TikTok ban, and that doesn't mean I'm not concerned about national security questions. It doesn't mean I'm not concerned about algorithm transparency. It doesn't mean I'm not concerned about data security for individual Americans, etc. However, I am conveniently noticing a whole lot of free speech conservatives attaching themselves to the facade of national security, to the facade of independent data security of each individual person, and to the facade of free speech through algorithm transparency, all while covertly trying to silence 170 million Americans on Gen Z's most popular social media platform. When we're talking about Gen Z and TikTok in particular, TikTok isn't even just a platform where we do silly dances in our bathroom or we make get ready with me videos. That does happen, surely, but it also is the number one location that our generation is going for the free exchange of ideas, for challenging our perceptions, for having debates, for entertainment, and for the news alike. In fact, TikTok is actually replacing Google as we speak this year for being the number one search engine for Generation Z. So whether we're looking up a place to go to dinner on Friday night with our new cute girlfriend or boyfriend, whether we're looking up who to vote for president of the United States, or anything in between, we are primarily going to TikTok as a platform to seek out answers to those questions rather than even typing something into our web browser. That is a behemoth of a cultural venue where over 70% of the 170 million Americans on TikTok are Gen Zers. So almost numerically, every single member of my generation in our country is regularly using this platform. Yes, sometimes for entertainment. Yes, sometimes for funny things. Yes, sometimes for ridiculous leftist propaganda things, but way more often than not to share things that we will never be able to talk about in the leftist-controlled institutions of the mainstream media and supposed journalism of our high school and college campuses, of the entertainment industry, of sadly far too often the church, and everything in between now. Are there still massive concerns about conservatives having the deck stacked against them with censorship problems and algorithm bias? Yes, 100%, and we need to be figuring that out. Are there people like myself as conservative creators on TikTok who get censored all the time and our videos and our entire accounts get deleted? Yes. In fact, I've been incredibly honest with you guys about talking about my experience having the Lazarus of TikTok accounts being permanently deleted like 7 times because people will mass report me for hate speech. And I didn't actually do anything wrong. And so then I'll appeal it and I immediately get reinstated. And the cycle continues over and over and over again. But I've also been incredibly honest with you that I experienced those things on Instagram. I experienced those things on YouTube. I'm still experiencing those things on Twitter, even after Elon Musk has taken over the platform. Free speech and algorithm transparency and bias politically in social media algorithms is a much bigger issue than just TikTok. And of all the platforms out there, there has been one social media platform that has ever taken the time to call me on the phone and ask what they could do better for conservative creators. Can you guess what it is? Anybody? One social media platform has ever taken the time to reach out to me directly and ask, how can we make this platform better for people like you? How can we make it easier for you to bring more creators like yourself to our platform? Anybody wanna guess which one it was? Yeah, TikTok. Numerous times have called me to make sure that I'm having a better experience on the platform, that we're not mass censoring people just because of their political viewpoints, and have asked me repeatedly for feedback how to make their platform better. So, meanwhile, all of this is unfolding for the last several years. And just to give you the brief spark notes, because I know we've talked about this until the cows come home on like a dozen other live streams, so I don't just want to keep resurrecting the same talking points. All of this really started in the United States with changing the national sentiment around TikTok about 2 years ago last month. In March of 2022, Meta, the behemoth social media company in the United States that owns Facebook, Instagram, Threads, which died very, very quickly, WhatsApp, and a zillion other platforms, hired a conservative, typically Republican-oriented consulting firm. Sorry, more appropriate language there. That I actually have known several people have worked for this firm called Targeted Victory, based out of Washington, D.C. And Targeted Victory is a consulting firm that generally gets retained by companies to sway public opinion on the conservative side of things. So they'll plant op-eds in newspapers and in magazines. They'll try to introduce legislation through Republican politicians. They'll work with conservative influencers to change the tide of public opinion. And it was Meta that hired Targeted Victory in March of 2022, specifically with the goal of creating anti-TikTok sentiment in the United States, and the end goal with banning TikTok outright. Why would they do such a thing, you might ask? It wasn't just because TikTok is taking away all of their opportunities to have a monopoly in the social media space, although I'm sure that's part of it. It was because that month, Meta was actually caught red-handed selling your data under the table to the Chinese Communist Party, to the CCP. Meta was trying to cover up for the fact and deflect that they had sold all of your private data to China, and they have to Russia and many other foreign adversaries as well, under the table because they're an American company and they don't want to be seen as the bad guy. So they hired this consulting firm specifically to plant op-eds, work with influencers, and create legislation around TikTok being a national security threat, even though there is very little to zero data to support the idea that the CCP has ever accessed the average person's data through TikTok. Do they have the capacity to? And is that something that we should be concerned about? Yes. But an outright ban of this platform really isn't addressing that problem. It certainly isn't addressing what happens when American social media companies like Meta, which owns Facebook and Instagram, like Twitter, like YouTube, etc., sell your data to foreign adversaries. And it really does little or nothing to answer the question about national security at all, because at the exact same time that all of our politicians are trying to tell us it's for your safety against a national foreign adversary like China, they are allowing China to buy millions of acres of farmland in the United States to undermine the American agriculture industry. And by the way, most of that land is butts up against military bases in our country, so that should make you feel really good. They're allowing China to fly spy balloons across the entire airspace of our country, and instead of shooting them down, we just make memes about that, because that feels really great. And we know that China has historically been in bed with the guy that's sitting in the Oval Office of the White House of the United States right now. So I'm not really buying the whole national security thing. What I really think this is about is censorship. And here on the stream, we've gone through several examples of different bills, different pieces of legislation, of which there have been many introduced in Congress, both on the Senate side and on the House side, with the aim of banning TikTok, which, to no surprise, most of this legislation barely, if ever, even mentions TikTok in the bill itself. That word, that name, is typically not included in the legislation, but instead are bills created to give unelected bureaucrats like the Secretary of Commerce, or in this case, the bill that we're about to go through today, the President of the United States, unilateral jurisdiction to silence and censor you, American citizens, and any social media platform, website, video game, online banking platform, hardware or software associated with the internet. So your webcam, I mean, literally anything under the sun, take that away, silence and censor you, deplatform you under the guise of national security. And every single one of these bills, no matter how they are written or what path they take to get there, is really creating a Patriot Act for the digital age. It's creating an opportunity to treat American citizens as foreign adversaries, while all conveniently pointing the finger right now at China and saying that's the enemy. They're really trying to make you the enemy. And in a country where the FBI is already labeling parents who testify at school board meetings as domestic terrorists, or Catholics like myself who go to Mass on Sunday as radical extremists, a different study and report came out this week that the FBI has officially started to rank pro-lifers as a greater threat to national security than Islamic jihadists. Okay, so this is the priority of our government. If that's already the direction we are heading in society, I trust the government 0%, negative percent, with their goodwill in protecting us against harmful, dangerous content on the internet. Because what is the harmful, dangerous content on the internet that they specifically will go after first? In treating American citizens as foreign adversaries, which, by the way, is already legal under the Patriot Act after 9/11. People like me and streams like this and the videos that I post on the internet every single day. That is the secret Trojan horse priority of legislation like the Restrict Act, which we've gone through ad nauseum here on the stream, that started on the Senate side, and like this 21st Century Peace Through Strength Act, a 184-page bill that Congress is expected to vote on this weekend and are currently debating right now as we speak, that really has nothing to do with banning TikTok, but has everything to do with silencing and censoring you. So many people who were initially pro TikTok ban, which I think was most of the conservative movement, are really starting to wake up to this reality. And frankly, as annoying and horrifying and nauseating as it is that Congress keeps reintroducing bill after bill after bill after bill to this exact same effect with the intent on silencing you, I think it's exposing over and over and over again what their real intention is. So I'm really happy and joyful to see more TikToks or Twitter posts, tweets like this from my friend Charlie Kirk. The fact that Republicans are sprinting to try to give more censorship powers to Joe Biden under the guise of banning TikTok right after they renewed FISA, which is searching your private data without a warrant, which, by the way, was voted on last week almost unanimously by the House of Representatives. There were only 60, I believe, Republican members of Congress that voted against it. So talk about a uniparty. Makes me inherently against whatever crap they are pushing. No new censorship powers to the federal government, period. W. Charlie. Thank you very much. And Charlie's somebody that has really, really struggled with the idea of keeping TikTok because he's been wildly concerned about it. I think the way most conservatives have been, not based on actual accurate information, but based on what we all have been told about TikTok because of multi-zillion-dollar contracts with lobbying companies to try to convince you that it's undermining national security, that it's undermining our private data, that it's undermining American values and traditional values. Newsflash, we don't need China to do that through an app called TikTok. If you've seen any content lately on Instagram or Facebook or Twitter or YouTube or just about anywhere else on the internet, we are destroying American culture ourselves from the inside out. So that's perhaps the most shallow argument to me possible. But I love seeing more people be more outspoken about this because the truth is, this isn't a right versus left issue. This isn't a Republican versus Democrat issue. This isn't a conservative versus liberal issue. Banning a platform that 170 million Americans use every month, 70% of whom are young people, largely to exchange ideas about our government and to criticize our government and to encourage a change in leadership, to encourage a change in culture, and to fight this culture war we're in on offense. That is blanket government censorship. I have no other way that I could possibly describe that to you. And there are millions of other avenues we could take to address the real concerns about national security, to address actual concerns about our data being sold by any company to a foreign adversary, to address the real concerns about algorithm transparency and an unfair deck of cards stacked against conservatives, but banning this platform outright tells me everything I need to know about the priorities of individuals in Congress. So they've tried to do this through the Restrict Act in the Senate, which is maybe the most horrifying piece of legislation I've ever read. They tried to do this through a separate bill in the House of Representatives that isn't picking up a lot of steam in the Senate. So now they're realizing, okay, we just need to do what Congress does best. We need to write a bill about 8 million different things, most of which would pass, and stick things in the middle of this bill that have nothing to do with the general sentiment of the legislation. But because it's stuck right smack dab in the middle of hundreds of different pages, it likely will pass. This is what Congress does best, unfortunately, and why we desperately need to create a rule in the United States that we only have single issue bills. Because when you don't have single issue bills, you get BS like HR 8038, projected to be voted on this weekend, the 21st Century Peace Through Strength Act, because we don't have 17 hours of our time to go through all 184 pages of this bill. You can see that at the top, at the little preview section of this PDF. 184 pages. I will conveniently tell you that the conversation about banning TikTok doesn't even come up. Until page 66, okay? Smack dab in the middle of a bill designed to hide that they are trying to do this for you. Actually, I think this whole section, the whole section for TikTok starts on page 58. You don't even see the word TikTok until page 66, where they're using it as an example, just one example, of a foreign adversary controlled application, which actually means any website, desktop application, mobile application, or augmented or immersive technology application that is operated directly or indirectly, including through a parent company, subsidiary, or affiliate by any of ByteDance, TikTok, or a subsidiary of or a successor to an entity identified in Clause 1 or 2 that is controlled by a foreign adversary, or is an entity owned or controlled directly or indirectly by an entity identified in Clause 1, 2, or 3, or a covered company that is controlled by a foreign adversary and that is determined by the president to present a significant threat to the national security of the United States. La 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 la. In plain English, in plain vernacular language here that's not specifically written in words and language designed to confuse you because the average person isn't intending to read this legislation. What that means is, basically, widely interpreted, this bill allows any application, website, video game, VR, augmented reality, technology, etc., that either is owned by a foreign company in a quote-unquote foreign adversary country, the definition of which changes all the time, so we don't really have a blanket definition of what that looks like, or owns themselves a separate application. They have a subsidiary of something that is considered located in or indirectly operated by a foreign adversary country. And they go on to explain in this legislation, it's not even apps that are owned entirely by foreign adversaries. It also includes anything that has up to 20% stake in from a foreign adversary. So if you know anything about technology, if you know anything about social media applications, website development, VR, video games, etc., that essentially could include, like, basically every single website, mobile application. You know what? I don't even want to just paraphrase. I want to read this out loud because I think this is important. That could include, theoretically, any website, desktop application, mobile application, or augmented or immersive technology application on Earth, essentially, because nothing on the internet operates in a vacuum from one country. And most of the best coders, most of the best website developers, most of the social media platforms that end up becoming the most successful have something to do with another country that probably, more likely than not, is considered a foreign adversary to the United States of America. So they stick this in a 184-page bill and don't even use the word TikTok until page 66. For the record, the use of the word TikTok in this bill only happens once. One time in a 184-page bill. And then you might ask yourself, well, if it's a 200-page bill and TikTok is only mentioned once, what else could possibly be included in this legislation? Great freaking question, and I would love to answer that for you. Reuters has put together a very helpful guide as to what's in the U.S. House's national security and foreign aid bills. And you might be confused. You might be thinking, bills, that's plural. We're only reading one. Yeah, correct, bills, plural, because what they've conveniently done through this disastrous 21st Century Peace Through Strength Act is combined 4 different bills that have nothing to do with each other whatsoever into a single vote. Why? Because this is what Congress does best. Because they're not actually interested in doing something meaningful. They're just interested in getting crap done for the sake of getting crap done. So then they can bloviate to you every November, every 2 years and say, look what I did during my term as congressman. No one else could do something like that for you. So you need to reelect me. Screw you if you think the incumbent is bad. They're just trying to pass anything and everything so that they can say that when they run for reelection. So they've combined these 4 bills that supposedly have to do with national security and foreign aid. And here's what Reuters has to say about it today. The Republican-controlled U.S. House of Representatives is expected to vote on Saturday on aid for Ukraine, Israel, and the Indo-Pacific. Why all of those things have to be tied directly to each other instead of separate pieces of legislation, I don't know. But apparently we can only give foreign aid to Ukraine and Israel and Taiwan if we give it all together at the exact same time in the same bill, along with a national security bill that could effectively ban TikTok in the United States. So here's what's included in this gigantic umbrella shit show. Excuse my language, but that's all we can say because that's the only logical explanation for this. The largest of the 4 bills allocates $61 billion with a B specifically to support Ukraine in its 2-year-old battle to repel Russia's invasion. Chat, I have lost count over how much money, how many blank checks we have sent to Ukraine. Anybody out there? Can anybody out there help me calculate what an additional $60 billion would do here? What total number are we at? Does anybody know? As far as I'm concerned, it's a billion infinite dollar. Like, it's just billions upon billions upon billions of infinite dollars. But I don't actually know. Does anybody know? We've lost count because we've done this so many freaking times to aid Russia or to aid Ukraine in fighting Russia that I can't even keep up with the number. But not only is it $61 billion directly to Ukraine, it's also $23.2 billion to replenish U.S. weapons in Ukraine, stocks and facilities, and an additional $11 billion for current U.S. military operations in the region. Plus, there's more. You thought we were done. Psych. It also includes $14 billion for the purchase of additional advanced weapon systems, plus $26 million to continue oversight and accountability of aid provided to Ukraine. Here we go. They answered my question for me. If approved, the funding would bring the total U.S. investment to the conflict from this one bill alone to $170 billion. 2 years into this conflict, for the record. So how successful are we actually moving the needle in this? I don't know. But this bill alone would provide almost $200 billion to Ukraine. while also banning TikTok, which makes me feel fantastic, by the way, as a small business owner and entrepreneur who, for the first time in her adult life, made some decent money last year and then had to give tens of thousands of dollars to the IRS on Monday, which I'm still pissed about, like a third of my income, so that we can send $200 billion to Ukraine. Again. Great. Don't we all just feel ridiculously warm and fuzzy inside? While we're also doing this, by the way, to silence American citizens, to censor American citizens through banning Gen Z's most popular social media platform. Because those two things are 100,000% inherently related to one another. But it doesn't just stop at Ukraine. No, you sweet children. It gets so much better. The bill also conveniently supplies $27 billion to support Israel and reimburse U.S. military operations in response to recent attacks. For the record, how is this different from Ukraine? There is a fundamental difference between our funding to Israel and Ukraine. Should we all be frustrated how much money we're spending overseas? Yes. But every dollar that we spend with Israel has to be respent back in the United States of America. So it is a bit more nuanced there, and we actually have rules here, as opposed to Ukraine, who just goes, money please, and takes all of our money. But I digress. Still, $27 billion to support Israel. Some $5.2 billion will go towards replenishing and expanding Israel's rocket defense system. Another $3.5 billion will go towards purchasing advanced weapon systems. $1 billion to enhance weapons production, and $4.4 billion for other supplies and services provided to Israel. Then, you thought it was still over. Psych. $8 billion additional dollars will go towards countering communist China and ensuring a strong deterrence in the region as China flexes its military muscles. Some $3.3 billion will be allocated to developing submarine infrastructure, because submarines and banning TikTok are directly related to one another. Plus $2 billion in foreign military financing for Taiwan and other key allies in the region to support them confronting Chinese aggression. So in this bill alone, we're talking several $100 billion for Ukraine, for Israel, and for the Indo-Pacific. None of which have anything to do with each other. So that's lovely. We couldn't vote on those three things separately. But apparently, we also can't vote on banning TikTok separately from sending hundreds of billions of dollars to other countries. Why? I don't know. Because Congress is the worst. You heard it here first. In the bill to ban TikTok is this. A bill released late Wednesday night would give ByteDance, the Chinese owner of TikTok, up to a year to divest its U.S. assets or face a ban on the app being available in U.S. app stores or on U.S. web hosting services. That is double the 6 months that the bill the House passed last month would have allowed. So they're trying to argue from a lawmaker congressional perspective, well, we're compromising here because we're giving them more time. So we're not really trying to ban the platform. We're actually giving them more time, but then we will ban it. Yeah, 100%. This 21st Century Peace Through Strength Act, I can't even say the name because it's so freaking long, would also allow the federal government to transfer frozen Russian sovereign assets to Ukraine and to expand sanctions against Iran and its oil production. So in the middle of a 200-page bill, we're telling ByteDance, you have a year to sell TikTok to an American company. Oh, but also, we're expanding sanctions against Iran. Oh, but also, we, the United States government, are seizing Russian assets and just giving them to Ukraine. Oh, but also, that's not enough. We're giving billions of dollars in cash to Ukraine. Oh, but also, we're giving billions of dollars to Ukraine in weaponry and oversight personnel. Oh, but also, we're going to give billions to Israel. Oh, but also, we're going to give billions to various nations scattered throughout the South Pacific to counter China. I'm trying to say nice things today, but And these are the same people who say we can't do single issue bills. Gee, I wonder why. Because at the exact same time all of these things are happening, you might be asking yourself, why are they putting all of this in one bill It's really not rocket science. It's quite easy to understand, actually. They all get kickbacks from every single one of these things. They all hold massive, massive stock investments in the military-industrial complex and with defense contractors. They all hold massive, massive stock investments in American social media companies. Oh, and by the way, Meta is one of the most powerful lobbying groups to get people elected to the United States Congress and has spent unbelievable sums of money getting people from both political parties to be elected to Congress. So they're pulling the purse strings for the next election coming up in November. And so they all stand to financially benefit from every single one of these things happening at the same time. But it's for you. It's for your safety. It's to protect you from angry communist content on the internet, as if you will never see any of that again on American social media platforms. Luckily, there are some sane members of Congress who also, like commentators waking up to the real intentions here, are waking up to this reality as well. And largely that's because of you guys taking the time to contact your elected officials and tell them, if you ban TikTok, I will not reelect you. Period. Full stop. There are consequences to your votes. Period. Full stop. So the more we've continued to do this over the last year or so, the more people like Representative Nancy Mace say, you know, I don't feel great for my career about supporting a bill that does this. She introduced a whole host of different amendments to this disastrous 200-page bill, but one of which is an amendment to strike the TikTok bill from the overall vote that is happening this weekend. Here's what she had to say about it on Twitter. She introduced this amendment. This is an amendment to strike the TikTok bill. If we are going to protect national security and American consumers, then do it, but don't do it in a meaningless, unconstitutional messaging bill. In other words, you don't get to unilaterally hand a czar position to the president of the United States to determine if every single website, gaming app, mobile application, desktop application, augmented reality, virtual reality software on the face of the planet violates American national security interests, period. That is unconstitutional and flies in the face of the First Amendment to the Constitution of the United States. Representative Thomas Massie, who might be the last single standing, relatively sane member of the United States government, had a whole lot to say in a hearing about this bill. Forgive me when we play this clip. It has some clicking from the microphone. It is their microphones in Congress. There's not much we could do about that, unfortunately, but what he had to say was so powerful that I know you'll be able to listen through it. Here's what Thomas Massie had to say about this today.
In this bill that I want to talk about, Mr. Chairman, is the so-called TikTok ban. This was not unanimously supported on the floor of the House. It's been described as a sweetener in the bill. Doesn't sweeten the package for me at all. It's kind of sour, if you ask me. And my concern is, why does the bill allow the president to ban not just apps but websites? And
why does the bill, important question, why does the bill allow the president of the United States to ban not just apps and certainly not just TikTok, but entire websites?
Conditions under which the president can ban an app or a website, either it's 10% owned by a foreign adversary country.
Oh, I was wrong. It's not 20%. If any app or website, I just combined those two things. If any app or website is 10% owned by any entity that's considered a foreign adversary to the United States, which, as we mentioned, under the guise of the Patriot Act, under the current coverage of the Patriot Act, could include American citizens too, then the president has the power to shut it down. Unbelievable.
Or it is domiciled in a foreign adversary country, or the third option, which is most concerning to me, is that it's controlled by a foreign adversary country. Now, there's an article out today about me saying that I'm a friend of Putin simply because I've not voted for the aid to Ukraine. So there are those in the media who would declare me an adversary of things. Or
the GOAT, Thomas Massie, we love you. He's right. There is an article in the media today calling this guy, Thomas Massie, an adversary of the United States because he doesn't support giving another $200 billion to Ukraine, which naturally makes him a friend of Vladimir Putin and therefore an enemy to the state. Does that mean any website or app that Thomas Massie has influence in is controlled by a foreign adversary? Who gets to determine that? According to this bill that they're voting on, the President of the United States. And I don't know about you, but I don't have a whole lot of confidence in anybody sitting in the Oval Office behind the resolute desk having the wherewithal and emotional maturity to determine if these things are actually national security concerns. We're talking about the big guy right now in Washington, D.C.
Of Putin. And I am concerned that that is a large loophole in the TikTok bill that should not be in there, because we shouldn't give the president broad authority to declare foreign adversary countries and or then declare an app or a website under the control of a foreign adversary country. Chairman McCall, do you have any concern about giving the president that much authority?
Anybody should have concern about giving the president that much authority. The authority to broadly, unilaterally determine which countries are considered foreign adversaries to the United States, and also the ability to just broadly determine unilaterally which websites, apps, games, softwares impact national security. As I've already mentioned on this stream, our current law enforcement agencies, particularly the FBI, who report to who? Who? The President of the United frickin' States, already have recently ranked pro-lifers, pro-life activists, as a greater threat to national security than Islamic jihadists. Our FBI has already created an entire underground network to label Catholics going to Mass on Sunday radical extremists in our society and infiltrate parishes around the country to basically create a terrorist out of you, to create reasons to arrest you. Our FBI has already labeled moms testifying at school board meetings domestic terrorists. Our FBI is already going door to door to people's houses when they posted a meme on the internet making fun of a presidential candidate and how that was undermining American elections. We essentially are already operating with a secret police. That's basically what we're dealing with already. And now we have so much trust in that system, in the people that are reporting to the president who's making all of these decisions, or somebody, certainly not the guy sitting in the Oval Office right now, but somebody is making them for the president. And we think, oh yeah, this will just be used to silence TikTok. Wake up. I just want to grab the camera and start shaking it for you people. What else do you possibly need for evidence that this has nothing to do with national security? In fact, even the term national security doesn't even mean national security today. It means anything that is critical of our current United States government. That's what it means. It means anybody trying to promote freedom of expression and the right to criticize people in power, which is the very foundation this country and Western civilization was built upon, by the way. But we need to be protected for the children, for our security, for our data. Maybe it's just me, but I'll say it. I don't give a flying F if China has my email address. They probably already do, okay? They manufacture every single electronic device that we use in the United States of America. If they really wanted my email address and my browsing history, they don't need it from TikTok, okay? Congratulations. What are you going to do? Email me? Great. It'll go to my spam, and I'll ignore it like the other 3,000 unread emails that I already have. But here's the part that I really, really want to remind people of, okay? Time Magazine last month had a published op-ed about banning TikTok as an inherent restriction on freedom of speech rights in the United States. And I thought this piece was so well written. This paragraph in particular and the next one really stuck out to me. Because of America's robust speech protections under the First Amendment, the U.S. finds itself playing a different ball game than the Chinese government in this moment. These rights protect Americans against the U.S. government, not from corporations like TikTok, Meta, YouTube, or Twitter, despite the fact that they do have outsized influence over modern communication. No, the First Amendment says that the government cannot stop you from speaking without a damned good reason. In other words, you are protected against Congress, not TikTok. The clearest problem with a TikTok ban is it would immediately wipe out a platform where 170 million Americans broadcast their views and receive information. Sometimes, this author says, I would argue more often than not, about political happenings. In an era of mass polarization, shutting off the app would mean shutting down the ways in which millions of people, even those with unpopular views. Can I make that more obvious for you? Speak out on issues they care about. The other problem is that Americans have the constitutional right to access all sorts of information, even if it's deemed to be foreign propaganda. You have the right to seek out information, to seek out opinions, to seek out different perspectives, to seek out historical knowledge, to seek out commentary, etc., free from interference from the government preventing you from doing so. That's what the First Amendment says. Even if we would consider that to be propaganda, even if we would consider that to be information from a foreign adversary, even if we would consider that to be anti-American, you still have the right to interact with that opinion. That's what freedom of speech actually means. I could not have said that better myself. There's been little evidence to suggest that ByteDance is influencing the flow of content at the behest of the Chinese government, though there's some reports that are indeed worrying, including reports that TikTok has censored videos related to the Tiananmen Square massacre, Tibetan independence, and a banned activism group. So again, are there concerns? Yeah, absolutely. There are 100,000% concerns about algorithm transparency and censorship over content. But again, I remind you, even though my account has been permanently deleted several times on TikTok, I keep showing up because the opportunity for virality to impact culture for the better is completely unparalleled on any other platform compared to what it is on TikTok. And in response to my account being banned numerous times, instead of whining and complaining and moaning about it all over the internet and refusing to give it another try, I kept showing up to the point that of all the social media platforms out there that I'm on, of which there are dozens at this point, there has only ever been a single platform that ever took the time to call me on the phone and ask, what can we do to make our platform better for people with opinions like yours? And that's TikTok. But even if they didn't have a desire to platform conservative views, even if they did go out of their way to silence and shame every single person that thinks the way that I do, even if all of the content on the platform was foreign propaganda, which it's not, but let's pretend that it is, this op-ed reminds us something very powerful. This was published a month ago in Time magazine. The Supreme Court ruled in 1964, massive precedence here from 60 plus years ago, that Americans have the right to receive what the government deems to be foreign propaganda. In Lamont v. Postmaster General, for instance, the court ruled that the government couldn't halt the flow of Soviet propaganda through the mail. In arguably a much scarier, much more divisive time politically, in terms of global geopolitics, in the middle of the Cold War, the Supreme Court of the United States affirmed that if an American citizen wanted to receive Soviet propaganda through the mail, they had the inherent constitutional God-given right to do so, free from interference by the government. The court essentially said that the act of the government stepping in and banning propaganda would be akin to, an important word here, censorship. And that the American people need to be free to evaluate these transgressive ideas for themselves. I feel like I'm in church. Amen. Hallelujah. I could not possibly have articulated that better myself. This article is by Scott Nover. He's a freelance writer. He covers media and technology. He's a contributing writer at Slate, was previously a reporter at Quartz and Adweek, and he wrote this article, The Grim Reality of Banning TikTok, published March 15th, last month in Time magazine. The answer to bad speech, the answer to propaganda, the answer to foreign entities trying to impact algorithms, culture, politics, etc., is never, ever less speech. It is never censorship. And I feel crazy. I genuinely feel like I'm being gaslit by an abusive ex-boyfriend. Like, genuinely, that's what I feel like. Because 99% of the time, the conservative movement, Conservative Inc., the Republican Party, will nod and shake their head with me and say, yeah, I agree with that. The answer is never censorship. The answer to bad speech is more speech, is better ideas, is to counter bad ideas with good ones. And yet, for whatever reason, everyone and their mom, for the last several years, has fallen for the hollow, shallow lie that the answer to supposed bad speech on TikTok, which exists on every social media platform, by the way, is just to ban the platform entirely, is to censor the platform entirely, either because of leftist propaganda or because of Chinese influence and national security concerns. And yet, even under American constitutional legal precedent, it has been affirmed over and over and over and over that free speech rights, First Amendment rights, are there to protect you from who? From who? Who are you being protected against? Not an app, not a website, not a private company, not a foreign government. The First Amendment is there to protect you against your own government. The First Amendment is there to protect you against the people you elected to supposedly represent your interests, who then hold on to positions of power for decades upon decades upon decades, and then turn around and try to silence you when you have a problem with it. How more people, even fascinating, intelligent, extremely well-educated conservative commentators, members of Congress, social media influencers, etc., how more people don't realize that that's exactly what's happening here blows my mind. Blows my mind. And they're so desperate to do it, by the way, under the guise of, well, it's just TikTok. Well, it's just China. Well, it's just national security. Well, it's just for your email. Well, it's just for crazy leftist content. As soon as we do this, we'll never, ever ban anything else again, while literally handing the keys to the kingdom of the internet to the President of the United States or the Secretary of Commerce or anybody else to just ban whatever website, whatever app, whatever video game you want under the guise of national security. They're so desperate to do this that they'll stick it in the middle of a 200-page bill that also conveniently takes all of your money away and gives it to foreign governments, that also conveniently deals with issues that have nothing to do with the internet, while also continues funding foreign wars that are not in the interest of American national security. I mean, why so many people are idiots blows my mind. That's the nicest thing that I could possibly say right now. But thanks to Representative Thomas Massie, thanks to Representative Nancy Mace, who's introducing amendments to remove the TikTok part of this legislation, thanks to people with substantial influence over Republican politics like Charlie Kirk, people are waking up to this reality. They're realizing that banning TikTok is not what everybody promised it was going to be. It certainly is not what a free country promoting freedom of speech would do. And it's not even really about TikTok to begin with. In the words of Alex in our locals chat right now, give them an inch and they will inherently take a mile. Our elected officials have proven this to us over and over and over and over again on the complete lack of border security that we have in this country, to the point that most of them don't even know what a border is or can't define that. They've proven it in the endless blank checks that we can continue sending to Ukraine for a war that is just never going to end, apparently. That isn't our fight to pick, but it is. They continue proving this on school curriculum. They continue proving this on your taxes. They continue proving this everywhere. What on God's green earth makes you think that it's different this time just because it's TikTok? Hottie3G on Rumble has an interesting take. This is all to protect Biden for the election. You know, it's April 18th, 2024. We are awfully close to maybe the most important election of all time in the United States of America. And we are today, in April, voting to give one of the guys running for president unilateral jurisdiction over regulating the internet, basically, including American citizens who might be considered foreign adversaries for their extremist ideas. I can't say I disagree with you, Hottie3G. What do you guys think? Are you still on the fence? Do you support the idea of a TikTok ban? Does this make you feel a little bit more uneasy, at the very least, about the idea of banning TikTok? How do you feel about these multi-purpose bills instead of single-issue bills? Drop it in the chat and we'll respond to a few things. PVZ says on Instagram, I have said two things for years. No more gang bills like this one. One bill for one purpose. When you have multiple things you need, then you're going to have multiple bills. JSN says politicians are the problem in this country. Facts. No printer. Little Junior Brian says, no, I don't support a TikTok ban at all. Soul says, I don't know if it's about silencing or the fear of China owning Americans' data, but I really believe that there are other ways to protect Americans without banning TikTok. Totally agree. Totally agree. Pablito says, bonjour, je suis français, but I understand. Are you guys having these conversations in your country too? I don't know that there are many other countries that serious about banning TikTok, except maybe India, who already has. But those of you watching in Europe and Australia, I'm really curious to know what you guys are talking about. True Love says single bills only. So does Jacob Robertson. Bills need to be single purpose. Unless you're trying to deceive us, you don't need multi-purpose bills. All right, Lit Yid and Steven disagree. Lit Yid says, I think TikTok is like a drug and very addictive and should be banned. Steven says it's made a generation as dumb as dishwater. I think that's just true of social media in general, but that's just me. Dylan White, ban the complete control of all the big corporations. They are doing the most harm. That's really interesting. Eco Mode, thanks for the fact check. It is banned in India. Leo says Zuckerberg, this is Mark Zuckerberg, has lobbied and he will personally benefit from the TikTok ban. Yeah, can't say I disagree with you there. Magic Def says consolidating power in Washington has been an absolute disaster. John Best says idiots. That explains most of Congress. Yeah, and hence why I won't run for Congress despite having been approached multiple times to do so. No, thank you. I cannot think of anything worse with my time. Hottie3G says he will use it to squash anything, Biden will, that goes against the Biden campaign. And N-Dubs agrees, says, I'm worried that they will use this bill against Twitter/X. I think they'll use this bill specifically to target pro-life websites and content creators, to target conservative websites and content creators, to target anything remotely critical of the government. under the guise of national security. And Bianca has something really interesting to remind us of. I live in Canada. Hopefully they won't ban TikTok here, but with Trudeau, you never know. They already banned the news on Instagram for us. This is 100% correct. Was it about a year ago, Bianca? I can't remember exactly when this happened, but about a year ago, the Canadian government banned Canadian citizens from accessing any information on social media platforms that they deemed to be considered the news. So basically, all of the news that you get to access in Canada has to go through a filter of what the government approves for you to see. How insane is that? Little Junior Brian says, what? They can do that? They did that in Canada. And if you think it's going just to stay localized in Canada, think again. Think again. 100%. So, look, regardless of whether you like TikTok or hate TikTok, regardless of whether you're on TikTok or you're not, regardless of whether you've bought into all of the same talking points of national security and data privacy and algorithms and blah, 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 all of the talking points that Meta has spent zillions of dollars to try to convince you is true. I hope that streams like this one and that more and more people waking up to this reality help you to realize just how disastrous the precedent would be in banning TikTok currently with our United States Congress. These people will do anything to retain power for themselves, which is inherently against the structure of our government that our founding fathers set up. It is inherently against a truly free and representative society, and it is leading us straight down the path to an authoritarian dictatorship. We are voting for and contributing to turning 2024 into 1984, and we are losing opportunities to speak up against it. If they ban TikTok this weekend, I shudder to think about what comes next, to think about what the next thing being banned is, to think about what the next website, what the next creator, what the next video game, what the next platform is to be banned, to protect you from yourself, to protect you from good ideas, to protect you from curiosity, to protect you from the truth. Don't let it happen. Contact your representative today because they are projected to vote on this weekend and tell them at the very least they have got to remove the TikTok ban from this 184-page bill. But while we're at it, they just shouldn't vote for it anyway because I'm sick and tired of seeing my $29,000 paid in taxes sent to Ukraine. Okay? I'm over it. 100,000% I'm done. I'm ready to move to the woods and start my own country. If anybody's interested in joining me, we ride at dawn. Speaking of platforms that I think the government is likely to ban, our friends at Hallow are dramatically transforming culture one day at a time by helping you transform your prayer life. In case you're not already aware, Hallow is America's largest Christian prayer app with over 5,000 prayers, meditations, podcasts, etc. A bunch of you guys watched me on my episode with Pints with Aquinas with the legendary Matt Fradd that came out this week. They just announced Pints with Aquinas is going to be available on Hallow too, which is phenomenal. You guys can get a 3-month free trial to all of their content right now if you go to hallow.com/Isabel, HALLOW.com/Isabel. Catherine says in our chat, Hallow is amazing. I use it every day. I do too, and it has totally transformed my entire life. Go check them out and help support them because I guarantee you they will be one of the first on the chopping block should all of these websites and platforms and apps continue to be under scrutiny from our current very godless government. And want to give a huge shout out to our amazing friends over at Rough Greens. If you guys know me, there's one thing I love more than anything else in the entire world other than God, and that is my dog, Liberty. She is my best friend in the entire world. She's out in the other room taking a nap right now. But I noticed really early on when I had Libby a couple of years ago that the food we are feeding dogs is disgusting. It's really dead food, to be honest with you. And our dogs are just not getting the nutrition that they absolutely need. So I'm so excited to be partnering with Rough Greens, founded by naturopathic Dr. Dennis Black. Rough Greens is not a supplement for your dog's food. It is an additive to your dog's existing food. So you just take a little scoop of it, kind of like protein powder, put it on top of your dog's food, and I promise you it will totally change their health. It has helped Libby's joint health, how she sleeps at night, her bone density, energy. Her coat is shinier. She has a lot more energy, the whole nine. And I know it's going to change your dog's life too. They love you guys so much. They're offering you a free Jumpstart trial bag. All you have to do is cover the cost of shipping and handling. But other than that, it is totally 100% free. You can go to ruffgreens.com, RUFF Greens, one word.com, to grab your free trial bag today and make your dog a whole lot happier. Call your representative. That's what I'm about to go do. And then I'm going to scream into a pillow for several hours about how completely irrepresentative our government is of the people, despite the fact that we have a government that is supposed to be by, of, and for the people. Our founding fathers are rolling over in their grave. Thank you very much. But we still have something to do about it. So fight back. Join me. Oppose the TikTok ban. Join the dark side. It's very, very fun. Clearly, I've been effective in encouraging other people to join the dark side. And we will see you guys back on the stream tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern. Bye.